Why during a fever, the term fever dream, do we find ourselves in the most, let's say, ridiculously, even hilarious cartoon-style dreams? How does this affect us? And is it simply just the immune response of the body, or is it something else? Like, as I'm describing, maybe we're kind of creeping slowly toward an not out of body, but a near-death experience. Maybe we're in the same realm. Just a couple ideas to kind of kick us off here, but love to hear what you think on this, and why specifically a fever, and why the fever dream as being even more wild than some claim of these even lucid dreams. And I don't really know. No answers for me, of course, but that's where we begin with the questions tonight. And a lot of ways to look at this. As you know, I got some wild ideas, but I don't want to blow all the great stuff up front. But what do you know about it, and how come specifically the fever dream itself is like a dream on steroids? Now, specifically, I don't know the answers, but it does seem to me that this is one of those things that kind of sticks in your craw, in terms of, at least in my craw, in terms of explaining why a fever dream is different, and why it is, become not just, let's say, something that we've all experienced at least once, but why is it so, let's say, prominent in the dreamscape? And the other thing that came to mind when I was thinking of this, and we're far removed from it now, because of course the pandemic has now become the flu. The pandemic has become endemic, and it is now the flu. Read into that as you may. And I'm going to go find the clip, by the way, where I said exactly that in March of 2020. I said exactly that way back when, before we even knew anything about it. But I'm going to go back and see what I was saying back then to see if I can surprise myself and maybe play some of those clips. Let's see what Michael Strange was thinking in 2020. Because if you guys recall, I was going out and kind of checking the stores on a daily basis to see if the panic buying had started yet. And I was going to the hardware stores and going to the sporting goods stores and checking if people were like, there was going to be a run on ammunition first and all the rest of that, right? And so I was able to kind of report on a daily basis what that looked like as the pandemic was developing. But I was thinking about it a little bit, and the reason I'm bringing it up is I was reporting on that on a daily basis then, what was happening out here, so you guys could know and kind of at least have a heads up on this type of thing. And of course, I was curious myself. And by the way, my wife thought I was nuts. She's like, why do you keep checking? And then suddenly everybody started panic buying, and I was like, yeah, that's why I was checking. That's why I was checking. Anyway, so the reason I bring it up is because the whole pandemic thing, we did a show maybe like a year and a half into the pandemic, maybe near the end of it, the official end of it, whatever they called that. And it was called Pandemic Dreams. And there was many studies actually where they were describing, so not just, let's say, as we kind of jump from the fever dream idea just a moment to this other sort of parallel idea. But way back then during the pandemic itself, people were dreaming differently. And we talked about that specifically in terms of why. Is it, again, sort of the most obvious is going to be sort of the fear mechanism that was built into the sort of the unknowing what was coming next, sort of unprecedented times, all the people on the TV saying you're all going to die, all the rest of this stuff. And remember, this is all pre-vaccine. But you get what I mean. Like, I'm not trying to get political on that stuff, but it was one of those times where everything was kind of up in the air, okay? But it did turn out into what we called the show then was, of course, just Pandemic Dreams. And so it seemed like everybody was maybe having a collective fever dream, okay, because of this pandemic, because of the massive stress, because even people were possibly sick, or, this type of stuff going on with, I don't even know if anybody caught the thing during the thing or after the thing or whatever. Like I said, we don't have to turn into that because that's just goofball. And people have litigated that in the public sphere for forever now. So whatevs. But you get what I mean. There was a whole something happening where people's dreaming structures were changing, and the things they were experiencing in their dreams were changing as a result of the lockdowns, as a result of schools closing, as a result of people kind of being halfway laid off of work and kind of sent home to have a Zoom meeting every 3 days or something. It was weird. It was super weird, unprecedented, a little bit scary, all the rest of that stuff, okay? But it did sort of lean into this new sort of dream realm, dreamscape. And the question that we asked then, there were many, of course, because that's what we do on Troubled Minds, was we were considering that maybe, just maybe, the dreamscape, we were polluting it with these pandemic dreams. And even to the point where, let's say, somebody, let's say you woke up out of a coma, just as a thought experiment here. Not that I'm wishing comas on anybody, but let's say you woke up from a coma during the pandemic, okay? And you were sort of experiencing this brand new, and were like, elated that you were awake and everything was, on the mend. But suddenly you woke up and your now dreams were polluted by the zeitgeist itself, by the fear and the stress mechanisms, and by the pandemic, and just by all the terrible things that were happening, at least conceptually, okay, with that fear base, or the fear basis, let's say. And so you wake up, and so that, which is parallel to tonight, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because it fits right back into where we started. But maybe you're feeling sort of these dreams, or sensing these dreams are polluted in some way, are broken, are sort of fragmented, are disjointed, and well, because everybody's pumping all this negative juju into the dream space and literally polluting it. And maybe we share these dream spaces. I mean, this has been discussed quite a bit. We've talked about it ourselves, tandem dreaming and all the rest of that. But I do wonder if this... Well, there's more to this, of course, which we'll get to as we go. I don't want to, like I said, blow all the goodies up front. But it got me thinking in that specific term, meaning that, let's say, during a fever dream, something's happening. Something's happening with sort of our dream state, our standard dream state. And we are maybe possibly inching toward that sort of near-death experience because, we're sick and our body's possibly even in decline. It kind of maybe hasn't turned the corner yet. Everything's bad. Everything's bad in the moment, and so it manifests as part of the dream, okay? But is it possible then that somehow some other thing is also happening, meaning we're not just sort of merging worlds with the dream realm and the near-death experience, but also maybe, just maybe, we're sort of fracturing, I don't know, like a psychic shield within our brain, and extra spicy dream monsters are kind of coming into the space. Now, a couple things that I wanted to point out with this, I was looking into some of the science, and it is a little bit creepy, some of the recurring situations that happen in fever dreams. So if you guys have had fever dreams, unfortunately, maybe you had a lot of fevers or something, you were, whatever. Like if you remember any of this stuff, I'd love to hear it tonight, because maybe we can compare notes with what some of the science here says. But this is from verywellhealth.com, and a couple things. So I'm going to read just a little bit of this, and then we'll take a break and get back and get into the good stuff here. But so fever dreams are often strange or uncomfortable dreams that people with a fever can experience while sleeping. Feelings of discomfort or unpleasantness may linger after waking up from a fever dream. While research on fever dreams is limited, bizarreness and a negative tone appear to be common themes among fever dreams. Very pandemic-esque, right? Remember that. The fact that strange dreams appear to be a common experience among people with a fever has led researchers to believe that fever symptoms may be more complex than just physical symptoms like chills, sweats, or tiredness, which is exactly what I'm getting at. Fever dreams may also reflect the experience of being sick with a fever, such as feeling hot, which may make them feel more real. Okay. Here's where this gets super weird. Ready for the maybe juice and the wild ideas? Here we go. So symptoms of fever dreams. This is from verywellhealth.com, based on the limited science they've done with this phenomenon. Because of course, how would you do this other than to give people fevers? And that's probably not the best science. I'm sure they've done this in the past. But anyway, you catch my drift. But anyway, so researchers have found that fever dreams tend to be much more bizarre and emotionally intense, usually negatively so, than normal dreams. Findings from one study suggested that the bizarreness of fever dreams is mostly due to the fact that fever dreams often contain some sort of spatial distortion, such as, and here's where this gets weird, moving walls. Yes, one of my favorites. Creatures with oversized arms and legs. Remember we talked about there was some sort of Alice in Wonderland syndrome where people were experiencing this without dreaming. It was part of their actual lived experience. A third one here. Metal spheres that move like an organism. Catch that? Metal spheres that move like an organism. Another one. Blackness spreading slowly. Now, if this isn't making your troubled minds tinfoil tingle, I don't know what does. Here's another one. Gigantic insects. Almost as if the bugs within us are projecting somehow to our mind. And we're sort of cosplaying the battle within us against these, giant insects manifesting as a fever dream. Anyway, although less common than the bizarreness of fever dreams, the same study found that some people experience some sort of threat in their fever dreams from dogs, Man's best friend, right? Insects, which goes back to the giant insects. Stones, which is strange. Terrorists, what? Large spheres. That's very paranormal aspect as well. And then, of course, some study participants also reported symptoms of illness in their fever dreams, including respiratory problems, pain, vertigo, or distorted vision. Okay, so the top list, of course, is the most strange here, the most bizarre. Why moving walls? Why creatures with oversized arms and legs, which again mirrors that Alice in Wonderland syndrome we talked about not too long ago. Metal spheres that move like an organism, super creepy, like what a gelatinous cube in Dungeons and Dragons comes to mind, maybe. Blackness spreading slowly like the black goo. Oh, scary. And of course, gigantic insects, because why not, right? They're creepy as hell. But anyway, what is going on with this? Do you think that there is something, let's say, a little more or a little less normal than, let's say, the reason for this happening? Do you think it's standard, our body's in distress, our mind's freaking out a little bit, and the fever dream results in these weird things? Or do you think it's something else? Because notice there's a lot of ways to look at this, and specifically, like I said, maybe those worlds are merging. That near-death experience versus the dream realm, and things start to pollute each other. Is it also possible that, let's say, when we're sick, our normal brain sort of defense mechanism, like a psychic shield per se, is breaking apart? It's coming... at least it's weakening in some sense, and some other dream elements that are usually not allowed are coming through and making us feel this sort of thing. Just some ideas to kind of kick it off, and I don't really know, as you know me, no answers, just more questions and all the rest of that. But why fever dreams? Why in particular, and why are they so wild and weird? And you think there's another layer to this? As always, no answers, just drinking the maybe juice, thinking about wild ideas by dark of night. It is our MO on this show, and that's what's going on tonight. So hope everybody's well. That's what's going on. Sometimes the inspiration for the show is a single line, and it was today somebody talking about a specific fever dream. Yeah, I've heard that. And so I did this too. I did the quick Zeitgeist search on fever dream. And there's a ton of people talking about, in all these different articles, they're describing these shows. Like, oh, this new show, it's like the best kind of fever dream. Like everything is fever dream this, fever dream that. Fred says Dune 2. Thumbs up, right? People have described Dune as the good kind of fever dream. I mean, is there a good kind? Anyway, so what the hell's going on with this? How come specifically a fever dream is different or more strange or whatever? What do you know about it? Have you had experience with this? And what is your take on, let's say, the maybe juice take? I don't really know. Because if I knew, I'd just like I said, if I had the answers, I'd just tell you the answers. I'd float and glow and become a Merkaba, and I'd be out of here. But of course, I don't have those answers. So that's what we're doing tonight. We're talking about, well, is it possible that just maybe the fever dream itself is encroaching on the near-death experience? That was the first thought. We can go there. We can go anywhere you want. As you know, non-linear, open-ended. And of course, talking about this as the endless fever dream, because that means that brackish aspect of dream realm and near-death experience may always be commingling, because somebody's always going to be sick and somebody's always going to be near death on this realm. I don't know. Too weird? Not weird enough? Love to hear your thoughts.